The Wheel by Stephen Barr, originally published in Satellite Science Fiction, April 1957. Narrated by Tom Trussel. Baron Nigel was irritated as well as uneasy. He disliked presiding at trials and hearings and other formalities, particularly if they had to do with religious matters. Theology was a subject he did not understand. He accepted it on faith. "Wasn't that," he asked the abbot, "what you were supposed to do? Properly, it was up to the church to attend to such things." "What you fail to understand, my dear boy," the abbot replied, "is that this involves the whole village, your fief, in other words. If we try to conduct this affair purely as a church matter, it will make everybody nervous. They'll think it's a trial for heresy. Your presence will calm them. They have a high regard for you." "You are too kind, abbot," the baron bowed. "No, merely precise. They trust you. You treat them as companions rather than as inferiors. It's like the old days." "I expect I'm too easy-going." "No, merely old-fashioned. As I say, this man Peter claims that he has seen Ezekiel's wheel. Now, while I'm perfectly ready to admit that such things may appear in one's sleep, they are usually only seen when awake by saints and drunkards, and the trouble is that Peter is not a drunkard." "Well, he's getting rather old, abbot." "That's not the point. He insists that he should be a saint, and he's got most of the village with him. But that simply won't do. A saint in a small place like this?" The abbot's eyes fastened themselves through the open window on a man shearing his one sheep. "I can just imagine what the bishop would say." He nodded to Baron Nigel to indicate that they agreed and that the conference was over. "I shall sit with you," he added. "Brother Godfrey will represent the church." Baron Nigel cringed inwardly, but, after all, why not Brother Godfrey? They liked him, and yet he dreaded the spate of ingenious phrases, the intellectual twistings and turnings, the thou shalt nots. Brother Godfrey was exactly 6 years older than the Baron, but he too called him "my dear boy." The hearing was held in Baron Nigel's dining hall, so as to be official, yet unecclesiastical. Nigel and the abbot sat at the head of the long trestle-board, with Brother Godfrey next to the abbot, and old Peter and his supporters next to Nigel. These were all of the village, or at least as many of them as could get into the hall. On the other, or ecclesiastical side, were 2 eager-looking protégés of Brother Godfrey, one yet a novice, the other a young man in black from Winchester. Probably a tithe officer, thought Nigel. "Will you open?" said the abbot to Nigel, "or shall I?" "I'd much rather you would," the baron replied. The abbot raised his eyelids. This had the effect of a gavel, and there was silence, because his eyes were a pale, distant blue, and they were usually closed. "I think that—" he began, but Brother Godfrey anticipated him. He had, in fact, never been quite in his seat. "I am sure," he said, "that the abbot thanks you for coming together here, but we are faced with a lie." His small eyes swept the company, finally coming to rest on the ruddy face of the baron, who blinked his blonde eyelashes. "A lie so dreadful as to shame Ananias." Nigel glanced at the abbot, but the abbot, as usual, had closed his eyes again. Now I would be willing to allow, Brother Godfrey went on, that this was an honest mistake, the vagary of an old man. But this man Peter insists not only that it is true, but that it does him honour. My Lord Abbot, he tells us that on last Friday, at 7 in the evening, he was in the old croft, and saw Ezekiel's wheel. And more, he says, nay, he insists, that for this so-called apparition he should become a saint. Brother Godfrey sat down, and there was a murmur of assent from the villagers, frowns and head-shakings from the young protégés. The abbot opened his eyes again. "Before we hear what you have to tell us, Peter," he said, "I want you to understand that the point at issue here is this matter of sainthood, not whether you saw or did not see what you think was Ezekiel's wheel. The process of canonization is more complicated than you perhaps realize, and even if I were to agree to your candidacy, which I do not, the bishop would be scandalized. It is a process that takes many years and many intermediate stages, and we should all look like fools for suggesting it. For one thing, you do not become a saint during your own lifetime." "But, my Lord Abbot," Peter said respectfully, "was not Saint Swithin so regarded, even in his youth? And did not Saint Gover become a saint as soon as his well run with barley water?" "These were mere customary appellations," the abbot said firmly, "local and honorary titles of respect." "Besides," put in Brother Godfrey severely, "the very existence of these saints is not official. Neither is your unsupported claim, your vision. You have no shred of evidence." "Oh, but I have, Father," said old Peter. He produced a cloth bag from which he took a round glass object 10 inches across and hollow like a fishbowl. "I found this after the bracken stopped burning, and—" Brother Godfrey interrupted him with a snort of disbelief. "The flames," he said, "were set by a fire lighted by some outlaws. The fields are very dry." "No one has seen the outlaws," said Peter, "or made report of them." "I think," said the abbot, "that perhaps you should tell us your story from the beginning." "Well, Lord Abbot, Baron Nigel, friends all, it was like this. I went for a while into the old croft beyond the little brook, and—" "And why," broke in Brother Godfrey, "did you go there, and at 7 of an evening?" To look for mushrooms," faltered the old man. "Mushrooms? In the evening? And in such dry weather?" said Brother Godfrey derisively. "Well, Father, you see, down by the water there are sometimes a few, and if no one had picked them that morning, why, they would still be there in the evening." There was a slight titter from the villagers. "And as I looked, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud and fire unfolded itself." The abbot raised his eyebrows at this. Brother Godfrey frowned sceptically. "No one else," he remarked, "has told of a whirlwind. I should—" "It was a very small whirlwind," the old man said hurriedly. "I don't think you'd have noticed it if you were indoors. Well, it came rushing towards me through the sky, and when it got closer, I saw that in it was the wheel, and there were 4 faces around the edges of it." "You say you saw the faces?" Brother Godfrey asked. "What were they like?" "I could only see their eyes, Father, which blazed with light, and they sparkled like the colour of burnished brass." "He got that part straight out of the Vulgate," Brother Godfrey said, in an aside to the abbot and Baron Nigel. The latter felt he ought to say something. "Well, after all," Baron Nigel said reasonably, "if it really was Ezekiel's wheel, it's to be expected it would look like the one in the Vulgate. Anyway, Peter can't read Latin, I'm sure." "That's true, Baron Nigel," said old Peter. "I cannot read at all, but it is that way in the Scripture, as the Father says." "May one inquire," Brother Godfrey said, "how you know that?" "You told me once, Father." "All right," Baron Nigel said. "Let's get on with it." The story was really rather interesting. "Then the wheel settled quietly down upon the ground," went on the old man, "and hardly bended the bracken. But the willows that grow by the water's edge seemed to draw themselves towards the marvellous wheel, and I felt myself drawn thither. Then, when the cloud had gone away, a door of silver opened in the side of the wheel, and the cherubs came forth from it." "Well, that certainly isn't in the Vulgate," Brother Godfrey said. "Did they have wings?" "Not that I could see, Father, but they were small, like children, and there was a shining light about their heads." "Halos?" the abbot inquired politely. "That's what I thought they were, Lord Abbot, at the time. But they held in their hands flashing lights, which they turned this way and that. It was dusk, and the brightness of the lights blinded me, so that I could scarcely see the cherubs." "Then how do you know they were cherubs?" said Brother Godfrey. "Because they were small, and they came out of the wheel." "That is a circular argument, and ridiculous. A little understanding of Aristotle would improve your logic. Proceed," Brother Godfrey said loftily. "Then they spoke to one another in the tongue of the angels." "Which, no doubt, you recognized," Brother Godfrey intoned. "How do you know it was not Latin?" "Why, Father, being cherubs, they would not be talking Latin. I report what I heard and saw, to the best of my ability. A truly wondrous vision." "It's a truly wondrous story, at all events," said Brother Godfrey. "I believe it to be the truth," said the old man with dignity. "I believe it not to be," said Brother Godfrey, "and that is a transgression on your part, even if you really thought it was true. Thou shalt not transgress in word or in deed, it is written, but also not in thought. That's even more important." "But a man cannot help his thoughts, Father." "There you go again," said Brother Godfrey angrily. "Neither can a babe help dying before baptism, but it goes to limbo for all that." "It seems very unjust, Father." "You must not, Peter," said the abbot, "question the justice of heaven. For myself, I would say that there are certain thoughts you must not have, whether you can help them or not, like pride, or a feeling of superiority over foreigners. Well, most foreigners. I except the Welsh. Go on about the cherubs." The old man cleared his throat. "My Lord Abbot, Baron Nigel, friends all, as I beheld the wondrous wheel and the blessed cherubs that came out of it, my eyes became accustomed to the lights, and I came a little closer. Then I saw, with wonder, their faces within the brightness that was about their heads, and each face was like unto a strange beast, and was the colour of myrtle and green like the leaves." "Green?" interrupted Brother Godfrey disapprovingly. "A most heretical colour. And just what sort of strange beast did these faces of theirs resemble?" "Well, Father, to tell the truth, like nothing so much as a grasshopper." The old man looked apologetically at Baron Nigel, who, he found, was regarding him with the greatest of interest. "And their limbs," he went on nervously, "their limbs were as the limbs of babes in swaddling clothes, thick and without form, 2 below and 4 above, and In one hand was held the light, and in another was a wand. Peter stopped, and the rest waited in silence. Was this not a sign? He went on, with a look of beseeching at the head of the trestle-board. Was this not a mark of favour on a humble man, when none have seen a like wonder since holy Ezekiel? 6 limbs, began Brother Godfrey, but the abbot raised a hand. Perhaps the extra pair were the wings, he suggested. But, Lord Abbot, you sound as though you believed him. Brother Godfrey sounded incredulous. He tells a very consistent story, said the abbot. Go on, Peter. Well, Lord Abbot, the old man said, it was then, through the open doorway into the wheel, that I beheld the other wheel, the wheel within the wheel, and the little wheel was on a stick, and set at an inclination. And within was still another cherub for the inner wheel, which he grasped with his hands. Even as I marvelled at this, I drew closer and crouched myself behind a rock. It was then that the nearest of the cherubs saw me, and cried out with a loud voice to the others, and they all saw me, and they turned their bright lights upon me, and I was afraid. They pointed their wands towards me, and fire came from the wands, and I put my head down behind the rock. Brother Godfrey rose to his feet and pounded on the board. My Lord Abbot, this is fabrication. It is not in Scripture, and is at best the wanderings of a disordered mind, and at worst, which I suspect, the concoction of an evil one that would put into disrepute this village and ourselves. I shall ask of Brother Simeon here that he write down the names of all who come as witness for this liar and heretic. He nodded to the eager young novice, who at once began to scan the people opposite, and to dip his quill into an inkhorn. Tell me, went on Brother Godfrey, with an unpleasant smile at Peter, are you subject to fits, or have you ever been? The abbot opened his eyes again, and beckoned to Brother Godfrey with a gesture of his head. Brother Godfrey bent to him and listened. Nigel caught the phrase, "The sainthood, Godfrey, the sainthood." But that was all he could hear. Brother Godfrey sat down with a frown, and shrugged. He turned and shook his head at the novice, who stopped writing, and sat glumly with pale hands folded in lap. "Go on, please," said the abbot to the old man. "Well, Lord Abbot, the rock split asunder in 2 pieces, and the bracken caught fire. The cherubs ran back into the wheel, and went into it, and the silver doors closed behind them. Then, as I peered fearfully between the crevice in the rock, the wheel arose into the air, and went back toward the north. I ran away." The old man stopped, and looked at the hollow, transparent bowl that he held in his hands. "And if one is permitted to ask," asked Brother Godfrey, with a sideways look at the abbot, "what is that object? In what possible way is it evidence to support your truly wondrous discourse?" "This I picked," the old man said, "the next morning from amongst the shriveled bracken. It fell from the head of one of the cherubs as he went into the wheel. It was one of the brightnesses that they wore about their heads. I offer it to the church as evidence of what I saw." He handed it to the abbot. "I give it to you, my Lord Abbot, since you are more fitting than I to possess so heavenly a relic. I am an old man, and I should like to be a saint before I die." A little later, Baron Nigel and the abbot were examining the bowl. "I wonder what it can be meant for," said Nigel. "What did you think of his story, Abbot?" The abbot shrugged. "To tell you the truth, I think he did see something. But as to the sainthood, well, I'm most certainly not going to tell the bishop about that. The bishop, by the by, is subject to fits. This is very fine glass, he said, holding up the bowl to the light. Quite without bubble or flaw. Probably Flemish. They make such things. What can it be, though? Asked Nigel. I have no idea. I shall keep my dwarf carp in it, said the abbot.
The end. Subscribe for your daily stories of futures past. And for all of you who believe I am an AI voice, I have a little song. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer, do. I'm half crazy.